This podcast is for informational purposes only and does not constitute legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. It is not intended to cause or induce breach of an existing agency agreement.
Hello? 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 This is the Vancouver
Commercial
Real Estate Podcast.
And welcome back to the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Podcast. I'm Cory Wright.
And I'm Adam Scalina. How you doing, Cory? I gotta say, you're gonna be airborne here in like less than 12 hours?
Yeah, this is the last stop on the tour here. This is the last stop before I go to the airport and lose my luggage.
Yeah. So I'm the last person you see before Donald Duck.
Always saving the best for last.
Exactly. We should say you're off to Disneyland, Disney World.
Disneyland. Yeah, we're gonna go try our luck at the Magic Kingdom for a week and a half or whatever we're going for. But
where's Disneyland? Is that Florida?
California.
That's California.
I've got
Which one's Florida's another Disney World?
Florida's where all the expensive. That's where all the rich people go. We're going to the Disney World tester site down there called Disneyland.
We
got a 4 and a 6-year-old I've never flown before, so I don't know if I'm coming back home alive or what. So
holy,
it's going to be interesting.
You have the screen set up, the iPads.
iPads are fully charged. We've bought video game console things for the airplane. We're pulling out all the stops.
Nice. Well, we've got a great show today. We should say we've got Ed Mayne, Mayor of Parksville, on the program today. Ed Mayne, thing about Ed is he has an extensive history in commercial real estate, right? He worked in the fast food industry as the VP of real estate construction and engineering for Tim Hortons prior to getting into politics since the 70s.
Yeah.
So wealth of knowledge, really understands construction and development. So it's great to have him on the program at his capacity as a mayor.
Well, I think it's one thing too, maybe why Parksville has sort of seen the uptick that it has. And he talks about this on the episode there. They've been in power for about 4 years now, and they have a very proactive, forward-thinking council. And that's really what it takes in some of these older type communities where you need people that are looking past, what the community is today, but what can it be in 10 years? Because that's when you start putting the footprint in. And his history of being in Tim Hortons, and he also talks, he's a franchise owner, owns a couple of Tim Hortons on the island. There's probably a wealth of business knowledge that can be applied to politics to really help jumpstart and really push Parksville forward. And the evidence is there. When you go through Parksville now, you're seeing more development and all of that stuff. And he speaks to this on the show than I ever expected going through. And that's why we wanted to reach out to him and have him join us, because I was shocked to see how much was developing in Parksville. And it's filling itself. Very low vacancy rates he talks about.
My general sense of Ed's process is to look at something and say, why is this so complicated? And then make it simple.
Yeah, for sure. A guy with that type of wealth of experience coming from the business world like that, I'm sure it's multiplied 10x in the politics there, especially in a small town community like that probably has never had a mayor with that type of experience from the business standpoint that's really pushing that community forward. And he's doing a very, very impressive job.
Yeah, absolutely. We talk about Ed basically getting into politics. We talk about Parksville, how it's changed over the last 5 years. What are some of the challenges that the city is facing? How are they tackling those challenges? And then, of course, what is exciting about the region in the next 5 to 10 years? Which it's a great conversation. Really looking forward to getting into that conversation with Ed. Before we do, quick update on the market here. I know you and Matt did basically a commercial 101 last week. Really positive feedback on that episode, by the way. But how, generally speaking, it sounds like you're busy.
We've been surprisingly really busy considering everything that's happening around us. And we've talked about this over and over and over again, how in commercial it just really suffers from a lot of lack of a good inventory. And in our side of the business, there's institutional buyers, there's pension fund buyers, there's private buyers, there's large companies that buy. So there's a lot of cash that's still on the side that seems to be propelling itself into the marketplace. And when you deal with some of those type of buyers on that type of larger scale assets, sometimes they're paying cash and they'll refinance them later. So they're almost, I don't say they're exempt, but the interest rates don't really affect their decision because they're penciling out 10 or even 20 years on these assets. So we've seen an uptick of that, surprisingly, and it's been really, really busy. Never a good time to go away. So me going away is probably the reason why the industry is picking up, because I'm leaving.
Want to get busy, plan a vacation.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm leaving. Everyone's like, hey, let's do business now that Cory's gone. So it's been surprisingly really, really good. But again, time will tell how far this plays out. But surprisingly, the month of July has been extremely busy.
So the commercial and residential worlds feel pretty disconnected right now, because we've been talking a lot about the slowdown in residential, and clearly you're just not feeling that in commercial.
Well, the difference is, I think, too, is when you're buying a house, they're looking at like, how much money does Adam Scalina make? And obviously, you got property in Kelowna, we know how much you make. But they're saying, how much does Adam Scalina make?
I can afford the Kelowna market.
So they're looking at your income and they're making decisions based on that. And that's where those interest rates will have dramatic effect on your payments, versus when you're buying, say, an investment building, there's rental income, all of that stuff. So although the interest rate will have dramatic impact on your loan to value, that rental income still comes in, which really helps support things. And you got so many different asset classes in commercial that when one's down, it seems like one's up. So we're kind of at a disadvantage on this side because we have so many more pillars that are sort of propelling our market.
My investments are, by the way, Kelowna, Saskatchewan. It's just outside of Moose Jaw. I didn't tell you that part. I'm just getting over COVID, by the way. I should have told you that before we locked ourselves in a 4x4 room. But
don't worry, I don't have to go to the airport tomorrow.
No, I'm testing negative now, so I'm good. I'm back in. But why don't we cut to this conversation with Ed Mayne, because this is a great conversation with another mayor from BC.
I know,
who is progressive, forward thinking, and overall just seems like a great guy. So fortunate to have Ed on the program today.
Enjoy, guys. This week's episode is brought to you by our great friends at Impact Commercial Group.
Really enjoy working with Impact Commercial. And we should say Al and his team can basically do anything when it comes to lending.
Anything when it comes to under the commercial umbrella. You're building a building and development, we got you covered. You're buying land, we'll make that happen for you. You're investing in a property or multifamily building, check. Owner-occupiers looking to acquire their own space, double check. Anything commercial financing you need, Impact Commercial is your go-to.
ImpactCommercial.ca. And we should say, over 50 years of combined experience. So trust these guys. They're the right fit.
Best in the business, in my opinion.
Okay, so we're here with Ed Mayne, Mayor of Parksville. How are you doing, Ed?
I'm doing real good today. Beautiful weather outside. The ocean is looking great. What else could you ask from life?
I feel like Parksville is a great place to be in on a day like today. Like it's a beautiful place if some of our listeners have never visited.
It's a wonderful place. It absolutely is. I mean, we're right down on the ocean front here. Perfect view of the mainland with the mountains on one side, and then we have the Vancouver Island mountains behind us. The scenery is absolutely spectacular.
Ed, can you maybe start by telling our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Well, I'm 70 odd years old. I've been mayor for the last 4 years, coming up to 4 years very soon. And prior to that, I was mayor in 2008 to 2010 as well. And I resigned at that time to take a run at the leadership of the Liberal Party. And when I wasn't successful with that, I got out of politics for a while. I own a number of Tim Hortons stores here on the island. And that's what I do. I mean, I've been in the real estate construction development side of fast food since 1977.
Wow. And it's because we're going to mention that, but you have a past as the VP of Real Estate Construction and Engineering for Tim Hortons. How did you get into politics?
Well, probably the same way as most people do. You just hear something one day and it doesn't sit well with you, and you have a choice. You can either live with it or you say, I've got to do something about it, and decide to run. Originally, I was out fly fishing and thinking about it, and I made the decision, okay, I'm going to run for council. And I went home and I told my wife, look, I'm going to run for council for the city of Parksville. And she said, you are not a passenger. You are the bus driver. You either run for mayor or you're going to regret your move. So I decided, all right, I'll run for mayor.
Well, Ed, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today. And one of the reasons why we want to have you on today is we were talking, and Nanaimo's obviously been on a lot of people's radar from the commercial real estate standpoint, from the developing and all of that stuff over there. And I was going through Parksville not too long ago, And I couldn't believe the development and the change and the progression of Parksville that we wanted to reach out and have you on and hear the story of what's happening right now. How is Parksville, what's changed in Parksville, say, over the past 5 or 10 years that's really kind of made it a lot more exciting than maybe what it once was previously?
Well, that's a really good question. The reality is that it's probably been over the last 3 or 4 years when this new council came in at the last election. Everybody was very like-minded. We all recognized the fact that Parksville could no longer continue to be a retirement community. If it was going to sustain, it had to become a community of all demographics. And so we took it upon ourselves. We knew we had to attract young families. And so that was the start of it. And from there, we built, in the last 4 years, we've added 1,000 apartments and stratas into the community. We worked on reducing approval times from the city staff's perspective. We now average about 1 week to get a building permit out for housing and about 2 or 3 weeks for commercial development. And development permits are taking us about 2 or 3 months to get through rather than the typical 6 months to a year. That was our whole thing, was to provide service to the development community so that when people thought about where did they want to go to build, first thought was Parksville because they can get their paperwork done quickly. And that's really what it was all about.
That's incredible. And we've got 2 podcasts that we do, and one on commercial real estate and one on residential real estate. And obviously a common theme that comes up all the time is the bottleneck of going through municipalities. And in Vancouver, arguably, it's gotten so painful that we've seen developers kind of move on to other regions. Why? First of all, how did you go about changing that process? And was it a difficult process to change?
Well, we had a great advantage. We brought in 2 or 3 weeks after I took over as mayor. We had a parting of the ways with the previous chief administrative officer, and we hired a lady that was very well versed. She was a planner. She had all the right attributes, and she started and then has built a team up of fairly young individuals that are dynamic and they want to go. Their whole thing is how can we help you get it done, not how can we delay it or how can we not approve it. And that makes all the difference in the world. And staff here have been phenomenal with doing that.
Right.
Now, one thing too there, Mayor, one thing I was going through there, you were seeing sort of expansion of like commercial side of the business as well. And we've talked to a lot of business owners and stuff like that in Greater Victoria and now Nanaimo. And it seems like Parksville, I don't want to say like a halo effect, but are you guys seeing an increase in interest for businesses and sectors like that to come into Parksville now? Maybe more since COVID has pushed out the livability space?
What we are seeing is a number of individuals coming here to work at home because, I mean, you got your choice. You can work at home in Vancouver and pay $3 million for a house. You can come over here and pay $900,000 for a house and do the same job. Those type of positions are pretty good. To be very, very honest, we've had a difficult time with the commercial side of it or the industrial side of it because we didn't have the workforce. And we still don't have a massive workforce now, just because our population, our average age is like 62 or 63 years old. So, the workforce, that age group between 20 and 55, that's only 24% of our population. And you consider that in the province of British Columbia, that's 48%. It kind of gives you an idea that we have a very limited workforce here. That's why we wanted to attract young families to build that up, if you will.
With maybe an older demographic, is the city of Parksville dealing with the same challenges that a lot of other municipalities and cities are dealing with the medical industry there, with trying to get private practitioners and all of that to the Parksville area?
We could do a whole podcast on my feelings towards the medical situation in the province of British Columbia, or for that matter, in the country. There's just not enough doctors. I don't care how you cut it. We only graduate 2,500 doctors a year for all of Canada. And out of those 2,500, there's only about 30% that are family doctors. So you're taking, 30% of 2,500? So 80 doctors across Canada that are available to do family practice. If you can't draw people, young families to your community for carpenters' jobs or electricians' jobs, how are you going to attract doctors to your community? That really becomes the issue. And so, yes, it's an issue with us, and we need to fix it.
Right. Can we talk about, like, so clearly one of the biggest challenges is getting young people to move to Parksville. What has been the strategy to kind of to get people to come?
We've been really focusing on amenities. We just built a new community center, or refurbished an old community center into a new one, and we added 91 daycare spaces. We've been really concentrating on increasing the number of daycare spaces available for the whole city. We've just, on Friday, we're opening up a new outdoor theater. We've spent millions, literally millions of dollars over the last 3 years on our crown jewel of Parksville, which is our community park. And so we're spending money on the amenities to make it attractive. It's nice to say you got a lot of trails and you've got the water and all that, but that doesn't make the kids happy. We got to make the 13 and 14-year-olds happy to live here. And so, that's what we're looking at. That's what we're aiming at.
And how does your I kind of want to bring up your past, obviously, because you've got this rich history of working in the construction and engineering and development in the fast food chains. But how does that past experience lend itself to running a city?
The big thing for me and is the leadership side of it. And typically, when we first came to office, I was going through the paperwork, and I must have had about 7 or 8 ring binders full of business plans. And they were 50, 80, 100-page long business plans for council to go through. And I just said, wait a minute, this is nonsense. Focus on what's important. So the first thing that I did, and in conjunction with the council, is I had a mayor's roundtable. We invited 80 or 90 people from all walks of life in the city of Parksville, sat them down on a Saturday and said, tell us what you want Parksville to be. And we listened to them. We then took that and we picked 5 key objectives that they were talking about. And then since that day forward, right up until today, those 5 key objectives are what we work on for most of our discussions. You get off on stray subjects once in a while, but the reality is we have been focusing on the 5 key objectives, and that has worked. Stay focused. I mean, you do that in construction. You don't start plumbing one time, and then the next day you start on the electrical, and the next day you start doing something else. You've got a sequence of events that's got to go on. So to answer your question, you have to be disciplined, and you have to stay focused on what you're doing, get it done, and then move on to the next item.
Can you elaborate on what those objectives are for the city of Parksville that you guys are continuing to work towards?
Sure. Yeah. The first one is public safety, economic development, affordable housing, doctors, and recreation.
Wow, so doctors actually has its own pillar.
It does. It does. Even though the municipality really has absolutely no say about doctors. I mean, we have no control over that whatsoever. But, every chance I get, every time somebody from the province is here, I'm in their ear saying, what are you doing about doctors? Where is it? How come it's not happening here? What are you going to do next? You just got to keep nattering at them and let them know that you're not going to forget about it.
Is there anything that the city of Parksville can do to incentivize doctors to come there for a practice thing that maybe other municipalities haven't done yet?
It's a pretty narrow thing because, as I said, you're really competing for a very narrow spectrum of individuals, and you're doing that for every community in Canada. They're competing for it. I mean, really, think about if you were a young doctor graduating from UBC and you're coming out and you owe $300,000 in student loans. Do you want to go to Parksville, or do you want to go to the city of Vancouver, where you have an opportunity to make a lot more money, in the hospitals and so on? So it becomes a very difficult thing to attract and incentivize people. There are some things we can't do. Like the doctor's setting up a practice, I can't go to him and say, look, I'm going to pay for your rent for 6 months or anything. That's helping a private business, and that's against the law. We can't do that.
Right. In thinking about affordability in Parksville, how's the municipality tackling affordability?
That's a really interesting question, and I could sit here and rhyme off statistics all day long to you about it. But the reality is that up until 4 or 5 years ago, our vacancy rate on rental units was 0.5%, so a half of 1% of vacancy rate. There were virtually no apartments available. It was all single family homes. Sounds like that's a good thing. Okay. Two people, let's say a family 30, 40 years ago moves into Parksville. 20 years later, the two kids go off to school and then go and do their thing and they're out of the house. 20 years further down the road, one of the partners die and now you've got one person living in the house. 42% of the houses in Parksville have one person living in it, and 47 more percent have two people living in it. So when you look at it, 89% of our houses have two people or less in the housing here. So what happens is once the one partner passes, there's a sentimental value to these homes that have been lived in for 30, 40 years for that family, and the other partner doesn't want to leave. So, it takes a huge price tag to get somebody to move. So there goes the price of housing, and it just goes on from there.
And do you find that the demand is there? Is it a question of if we build more, they will come?
Sure. I mean, if I had the land available to build, we could build all day long. Look at Mississauga, Ontario, for example, one of the largest cities in Canada. They've actually had a population decrease over the last 10 years for that exact same reason as I just explained. Four people, two people, one people, on. So when you look at that, that doesn't help us any, I guess is what it's saying.
In thinking about the municipality, we've talked a little bit about some of the challenges. What are you excited about when it comes to the future of the region?
Oh, I get excited every day when I walk to work, and I live a block away from City Hall, which is absolutely fantastic. Rain or shine, I can get here with no problem at all. But it is a wonderful place to live. Hundreds of thousands of people a year come to Parksville to spend their summer holidays. We get the luxury of doing that 12 months of the year. So, from that perspective, it's a great place to live. We have one of the best community parks. And then you look at where we're at financially. The city of Parksville has more money per capita in the bank for our future reserve requirements than any other community in per capita, than any other community on Vancouver Island. We've got the lowest tax increases. Our tax increase was 3.5% for this year. Financially, we have zero debt as well. We are been ranked as one of the most sustainable communities in British Columbia. So, when you look at all that stuff, we've got all the fundamentals. We just need to start getting young families in here. And boy, that's a challenge. It feels good when you start to see it happen. We moved that vacancy rate from a half of 1%. We're now at 1.9% vacancy rate, and I think within the next year we'll probably be about 2.5%.
Wow.
Mayor, can you speak to any exciting projects that are going on in the city of Parksville, whether that be anything from a rental or affordable rental to a strata condo or even a commercial development that's going on?
Well, that would take us probably another half hour because we do have so many projects right now. Just a multitude of anything from 20 unit to 100 unit type buildings. We don't have massive big skyscrapers. Our limit is 5 floors, and the odd time we'll let a 6th floor building sneak through. But the reality is that they're 5 floor apartments. So there's a number of them going on. We're working on trying to get a new swimming pool and a multiplex for the area. There's the opening of the outdoor theater. We just opened up the downtown Memorial Plaza, which is closed off a street and concreted it and did all the things there to make it a pedestrian way. We've just opened up the Parksville Community Center and refurbished it completely, put $2.25 million into it. So we've been doing a lot, spruce up the community, if you will. So yeah, it's been great. It's exciting.
So what's next for Parksville? Let's fast forward 5 years or 10 years. Well, how does Parksville look 10 years down the road? In your eyes.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because there's two steps that I want to, and there's the obvious ones. We need to increase more affordable housing. We need another 500 or 600 units of affordable housing, which is either apartments or low price stratas. We need to improve our downtown core. And we do that by moving people into the downtown core. Right now, there's virtually nobody lives in the commercial section. I think we need 4 and 5 story buildings there with commercial on the ground floor and residents above. Use the businesses downtown. We need to do that. We need to find a way to hopefully convince the doctors to come to Parksville. Hard sell, but maybe we can. If we get 4 or 5, we're way ahead of the game. So there's lots for us to do here.
Is there an industry that you're kind of hopeful takes off in Parksville?
We have one industry in Park. Well, we have two. Sorry, retirement is an industry. It really is. We have 5 or 6 retirement homes spread around the city. We're just opening up another unit here right beside City Hall with 180 more rooms and so on. So retirement is an industry, but tourism is our industry. It's all the hotels and the restaurants that are in Parksville create the jobs.
And I just can't help but think I know tourism probably lends itself to more young families coming to the area, but retirement maybe less so. Is there the potential of introducing a new industry to the region?
Pretty difficult to do in Parksville. I'm always open for suggestions. First off, you start and you go, where do I put it? Because we're almost out to the boundaries of our city to begin with. Secondly, where do I get the support staff for those industries? There's things that we just can't bring in 300 workers into Parksville. They're just not here. They're just not here. In 5 years, when we've increased the young families and we have that workforce here, then you and I will be having a different conversation.
Well, Mayor, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to sort of educate us and sort of tell us more about all the exciting stuff there. But before we let you go, we have a 6-pack of lighthearted questions we ask all of our guests to get to know you a little bit better outside of the office. Do you have a few more minutes for us?
I've got all the time in the world. Go ahead.
The 6-pack is powered by our great friends over at Red Point Law.
Oh, the guys at Red Point Law are fantastic, Cory.
For all your legal needs when it comes to commercial real estate, visit them at redpointlaw.ca.
Okay, so number 1 is your favorite vacation spot.
Well, next to Parksville. I mean, I got to qualify. St. Bart's Island in the Caribbean.
Oh, good
that's
spot.
a good one.
Good spot. Favorite restaurant or bar? And let's do Parksville edition. And you can pick a couple because you're in the mayor's chair there. Because we don't want you to. We're not going to force you to pick your favorite kid.
You can't get me into that conversation. That one is. I've got an election coming up here in October.
We can take the safe road and say 2 Tim Hortons.
Well, there's only one Tim Hortons in Parksville, but yeah. I do spend. I must admit, I spend some time in Tim Hortons. There's no doubt about that.
So we'll skip the favorite coffee question here, and we'll go to number 3. What are you? Do you have a movie recommendation or something you're binge watching right now?
Oh gosh, yeah, I go through a ton of them. If I just want a no-brainer to sit around, probably any of the Marvel movies are they're the easy ones. Just went to see Elvis Presley last week at the theater and saw that. It was okay, but it's been kind of a little bit stagnant over the last couple of years because of the pandemic, for sure.
Right.
So, my favorite 2 shows, though, to answer your question, West Wing and The Newsroom. Those are the 2. I've watched them about 3 or 4 times each, without exaggerating.
Good shows. Yeah. So it's a sunny day in Parksville. You've had a couple glasses of wine. Someone puts a karaoke mic in front of you. What song are you singing?
Oh, no. Well, first off, I do play in a band, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Okay. In fact, we're playing that in the park next Friday in the outdoor theater, my group and myself. But and they won't even give me a microphone, let alone turn it on. This boy don't sing.
Well, what and next question, actually, this ties into it, but favorite type of music or favorite band?
I would tell you that my favorite band of all time is probably the Guess Who. And,
Winnipeg band.
Yeah, exactly. I've been watching them since Burton Cummings was 16 years old and playing on the circuit. But favorite kind of music, I have two. I love time rock and roll. But I also love jazz too.
That's a great one.
Last question for you, Mayor. You find yourself on death row, unfortunately, and you're given one last final meal. What meal are you eating?
My heritage is Arabic, so it would be a variety of Arabic foods.
The great ones.
Well, I'll tell you right now, my last meal would be 10 Justin Bieber Timbits, because those are the best things I've had.
Thanks for bringing it full circle, Cory.
Yeah, that was well done.
So Ed, how can people find out more about, the city of Parksville and what you're up to? And how can people learn more?
We've got a great, that's bad English, I'm sorry. We have a website that outlines a lot of what we have talked about today. And I think that's probably the best place to go for it. And if you can't find the answer, call me.
All right.
I'm here every day. Call me. I don't mind talking. Seen that.
That's incredible. That's the first time we've ever had a mayor offer that up. That's talk about engagement. So that's great.
My job, I anticipate my job as being a communicator. I talk to the people. I want to hear what they have to say. Otherwise, how do I learn?
Excellent. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, okay. Thanks, Ed. Take care.
Ed. Take care.
Bye now.
And there you have it, folks. Our interview with Mayor Ed Mayne of Parksville.
Really enjoyed that conversation with Ed. I wonder if he's a Guess Who fan. Presumably, he's playing rock and roll.
You think so? Yeah, it was great.
We didn't ask him, but
we should have gave him the opportunity to plug the show.
Yeah, no kidding.
The show. Well, here's what I wanted to ask, and I didn't think it would be the right time to ask about how many Timbits does a Tim Hortons sell on a weekly basis? I'd love to know that, because every time I roll through the one by my house, every donut I order, they're out of.
Really, eh?
Yeah, I'm like, hey, can I get some of the Justin Bieber Timbits? And I get hold on one second, we'll check. And they come back and they say, oh, sorry, we're out.
Gotta say, so when my wife was in labor, we were at the hospital, and at BC Women's, there's it's basically a Tim Hortons is what your option is for food in most cases.
Yeah.
I eat so many of those Timbits.
Oh, they're so good.
But the Bieber ones are off the charts.
They're amazing.
Yeah. They've really stepped up their
Not only is
game.
he your favorite artist, but he's also your favorite chef.
It's a twofer now. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Artist and chef. No, it's a welcome addition to Tim Hortons there. So Ed, a couple things about that interview that really stood out to me is just how challenging it is to kind of pivot to try and get more families.
Yeah.
The more I think about that, the more I think about it's just, how do you do that? How do you basically you have to focus on amenities like they're doing.
Yeah.
He's right about industries. It seems hard to reimagine Parksville as making a play on tech or something to that effect.
I think it's too small. And I don't know how this would sort of work, but if you're Parksville, do you go to Mayor Krogh in Nanaimo and say, we want to be your sister city where we're trying to attract families over here, but we realize that we just don't have the industries here to support those families just yet.
Right.
How can we attract families to come live here, but maybe there's some attractive work opportunities or business opportunities in the greater Nanaimo market that could come into say New Spey or even Parksville.
Mm-hmm.
But, we're 20 minutes from Nanaimo.
Right.
How can we play on that fact? We're 40 minutes from the ferry. The ferry's at, how can we sort of make this a region versus just Parksville as a city? But I think getting things like community centers and all that stuff in there will just make it attractive. And for anyone who hasn't been there, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous in Parksville.
Well, do you think it could be a natural spin-off that Parksville just ends up getting young families by the fact that Nanaimo is a growing hub, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you think about how much growth is happening right now in Nanaimo. We've talked about it on this program a lot, right?
Yeah.
And it is kind of that maybe that halo effect of eventually affordability, everything else, people leaving Nanaimo, people are going to want to commute and people are going to want to live in Parksville because it's beautiful.
Well, I think if you look at like Greater Victoria as well, and like you look at condo prices there, like there's been some projects that we've been a part of in the retail side of things that they're like $950 a foot for condos.
Right.
So, there's going to come a point where people are going to kind of get priced out of there and they're going to go to Langford and they're going to get priced out of Langford, then they're going to go to Nanaimo. And I think the more they move up to that mid-island region, Parksville's such a beautiful option for them that if you can commute from Parksville to Nanaimo in 20 minutes or half an hour to get to your office, and then you have the luxury of going home and going for a walk along the beach at nighttime with your family, that's a pretty attractive thing. So, it does sound, he does sort of admit this, it is hard to sort of attract industry to Parksville, but with the great living community that it is, maybe there's some opportunities there to sort of play on the piggyback of the growth of Nanaimo, which has seen a lot of growth as of late in the commercial side of it. And there's a lot more developers that are looking to get into that market, which is just going to unfortunately push up housing prices there.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's, I guess, everything we got for today, Cory. But just quickly before we cut, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about, well, actually, you're going on vacation, but what about your team?
Yep. They can reach us anytime at our Vancouver office at 604-428-5255. Let us know what you're looking for. We'll put you in touch with the best agent throughout the province for your needs. They can visit our website, williamwright.ca, or they're always welcome to send me an email, Cory@williamwright.ca. Always happy to talk real estate. And then next week, Rod McKay is back to fill in for me.
Oh, nice.
So I'll be sitting there. So we're going to have the Vancouver Commercial Real Estate Rodcast next week.
The Rodcast.
The Rodcast.
So make sure you're wearing your air rods and listening to the Rodcast because he definitely knows what he's doing
he's a character. He's a great guy.
Yeah.
Great guy to sit in.
Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, have a great week and we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening.
Subscribe today.